Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another First Impressions video. In today's First Impressions video, we are taking a look at the WASR-10 V2. And before we get this First Impressions video started, I wanted to let you guys know, as always, how you can support everything that I do here on the Firearm Freedom YouTube channel. You can head down below to the description and check out the link to the Firearm Freedom merchandise store. Anything you purchase on the merchandise store really does help support what I do here on the channel. You can pick up awesome hoodies, shirts, stickers, and if merch is not for you, then you can check out the link to the Firearm Freedom Subscribe Star account. There's not really any extra content on the Subscribe Star account, but many of you guys were asking me for a way to donate even as little as $1 a month to the channel, and the Subscribe Star account is the way to do that. And finally, if you are not looking to donate to the channel in any way, then you can simply help me out by watching these videos, commenting down below. Let me know what you think of the videos, let me know what I can do better next time, and also hit that subscribe button and ring that bell. All of that activity really does help defeat the YouTube algorithms that are constantly pushing down gun content here on the platform. And a little bit of a side note on subscribers, we are only a few hundred subscribers away from 25,000 subs here on the Firearm Freedom YouTube channel. It is crazy that we are at that number, and I really do appreciate the support. This is a video that I think is long overdue. Unfortunately, I missed the boat way back in the day on the WASR train of AKs. I used to see them floating around in gun shops for generally as low as like $640 with the balsa wood stock and kind of your traditional WASR-10 feel. I always thought in the back of my mind that I would love to get a WASR, but then another gun would pop up that I would just get ahead of this AK, and it always kept just getting pushed back and getting pushed back. And of course, now here we are in 2020 and 2021, where the AK market is just, quite frankly, disgusting when it comes to pricing and availability of these rifles. The WASR in particular has gone up in price roughly $200 to $300 than what you used to see them for about 2 years ago. And although 7.62x39 is still definitely more affordable and more available than 5.56 and 2.23 in some cases, unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the guns. AKs themselves have gone completely crazy when it comes to pricing and also availability. Just finding an AK itself is incredibly difficult, let alone one far south of $1,000 that is actually reliable. Century more recently has come out with the V2 version of this WASR-10, and I do have a couple of complaints right off the bat after this 140 round range day that we had on this rifle. As far as the WASR-10 itself, how did the rifle perform at the range? Well, obviously, as you can imagine, it was 100% reliable. A lot of people still have this thought in their mind that they want to, for whatever reason, avoid WASRs. They are concerned about rivets and other things that were really only prevalent in olden days WASR imports that Century brought in, and they had kind of a bad spin-off of some WASRs. And then also the manufacturing plant in Romania also had just kind of some shoddy reliability for a few years, but that was quite some time ago. Now, for what you're seeing on the market, the reality of the WASR rifle is it has proven itself with track record time and time and time again, and this is an incredibly reliable platform from Romania as it sits. Now, what you're going to get with the WASR is almost always, I can't say I've ever seen a WASR without either a canted rear sight block, a canted rear sight, or a canted front sight. This always happens on these rifles, so you could say that yes, maybe these are crafted together by a drunk Romanian person in a sketchy factory overseas, but with that being said, they generally run very reliably. A lot of people look at these AKs and they say, man, they're super rough around the edges. There is tool marking, machine marking all over it. The barrel's a little bit canted one way or another. The rear sight block is to the left or to the right. And they don't really like that. They get totally turned off by the rifle when they look at something like a PSA And don't get me wrong, the PSA rifles are incredibly good for the money most of the time, and the fit and finish is pretty much immaculate. We care a lot more about the fit and finish of these rifles here in the States than they do in these Romanian factories. If you can get over the fact that when you bring your rifle home, you might be scrubbing some surface rust off here or there, and when you start shooting it, you might see some rusty material that's liquid, like oozing out underneath some of the rivets in some places. And if you can get over the canted rear sight or front sight, you have to understand that this rifle is probably going to outlast you when it comes to reliability. The V2 is still going to feature the standard Romanian WASR cold hammer forged and chrome lined barrel, and it's also going to feature the standard non-dimpled receiver. I do wish it was dimpled, but because of the way that these rifles are imported, because of our ridiculous laws here in the country, they are not able to put the dimple in the magazine because Century still does have to bore out the magazine well in order for them to accommodate double stack magazines like you see here. Speaking of magazines, these rifles come with the relatively newer version of the US Palm mags. Although these US Palm mags are not reinforced in the rear or the front, they actually performed really well at the range today. You can see on the bottom of the magazine, it got pretty jacked up because we were doing a few tests on them, and they passed the test with flying colors. Now, really the sore thumb that's sticking out here that unfortunately I am going to have to gripe about for a few minutes is the furniture. This V2 touts all over Century's website and other websites out there how it is giving you this awesome synthetic furniture that is half the weight of the balsa wood that was originally on there, and just awesome in every way. And I won't lie to you guys, that cannot be further from the truth. This furniture is horrendous. I'll be flat out. You guys know I'm rarely ever that negative about a part of a rifle, but man, this furniture is just horrible. It would be one thing if Century put on this cheaper plastic furniture and then also reduce the cost of the rifle. But you guys heard me mention in the beginning of the video that this rifle is now upwards of almost $1,000 anywhere that you see it. The AK market is wild, and I can tell you that I saw these come into the gun shop that I work at for a price of around $8.99, and I gotta tell you guys, that wasn't far off from our cost. Century has raised the cost of these rifles significantly, and online I was looking around at a few different spots. You are seeing these for no less than $940. So with that $200 to almost $300 price increase from before with the balsa wood, I just don't really understand why with the much cheaper furniture they also jack the price up almost $200 to $300. It is very unfortunate, but luckily it's a relatively quick fix. Even having some Magpul furniture on here, as blasphemous as that is to a lot of my AK viewers, it would be a far more practical upgrade rather than this plastic furniture here. The plastic handguard up in the front of the rifle is incredibly thin. What this is going to do is not really give you a lot to hold on to, and also it is really, really bad with heat protection. The barrel gets hot relatively quickly on an AK, and this provides no heat protection whatsoever. In fact, I found that it actually holds heat to the barrel a lot more than a normal wood or even sometimes a metal handguard would do. It, for whatever reason, really felt like it was about to melt after one mag dump. So this is really kind of negative in the fact there's not too much to hold on to, and it doesn't do well with heat. So the handguard is a definite no-go and is going to have to be swapped out pretty much immediately after this video. As far as the stock in the rear, I'm not sure if you guys are going to be able to tell on the camera, but this stock is actually angled in the opposite direction. It looks like it was like bent the wrong way with the forming of the plastic. And I got to tell you guys, especially with standard over-the-ear hearing protection, it is nearly impossible to get a sight picture on this rifle because of this stock, and it pretty much pushes up your ear pro with every single shot because you have to squeeze your head down so far onto the stock to even get a sight picture. So the stock and the handguard are atrocious, and luckily I do have some wood furniture that I'm going to be throwing on here pretty much immediately after this video ends. And with that being said, the wood furniture or just any other replacement furniture is really going to make the rifle far more practical at the range, And you have to understand again that the base rifle underneath the crappy furniture is pretty incredible for the money. These things still run incredibly reliably, and they're not going to give you any issues. As far as the pistol grip, this would be the one thing that I really don't have any complaints about. It's your standard ComBlock style plastic pistol grip. It is not too bad, not the best, not the worst, but it does just fine. This would be the one thing that I don't think you would have to switch out, but I definitely far prefer the US Palm, so that is going to be what I'm going to go with for this rifle. But as it sits, the pistol grip definitely could stay, not really a big issue. Because we got a couple of these rifles in at the shop that I work at, I was able to actually look through a couple of the options and see which one would do better. One of them had a canted front sight, whereas this WASR here had a canted rear sight block. For whatever reason, the canted rear sight block, obviously as you can see on the table here in front of you, was the one that I went with. The rivets just looked a little bit more solid on this rifle than on the other rifle. And that's one thing when it comes to the WASRs. If you ever have a chance to buy them in person, that is definitely going to be the way that you want to go. You're able to really check out the rifles, and although the quality control on these guys has come a long way, it is still worth, if it's possible, to check it out in person first. Make sure the rivets on that exact rifle are looking good. And also what I did was test the magazine well. I shot a number of different magazines with this rifle today, and I didn't have any issues with fitment. It was actually able to fit a wide variety of different plastic, polymer, and also metal magazines without issue, which is always nice to see in AKs. A lot of the time with AKs, they won't really mill out this mag well enough. It's either far too loose or far too tight. This one was a perfect right in the middle for fitment, and I had no issues with it at all. On the WASRs, you are working with a standard rear sight that is not adjustable for windage, but you can go with an RPK sight or something like that to get a little bit more adjustability out of the rear. The rear sight is just adjustable for elevation, and then your front sight is adjustable for windage. And you can see, because my rear sight block is canted, the factory already moved over the front sight, and I was hitting dead on at the range. That's another thing people don't really understand about the canted front sight or the canted rear sight block or rear sight, is even though they are canted, that does not mean you are not going to hit your target. Generally speaking, the rifles are just fine in the accuracy department. It is just more so a cosmetic issue with the cant one way or another. Now, the other gripe that I have is that with all of the price increases, they still could not provide you with a cleaning rod. I did install this cleaning rod. I had one laying around, luckily, but I am one of those people that does not throw my cleaning rods away. I love the look of the cleaning rod on the AK, and I also love the practical ability of being able to possibly clear a stuck case or just have a cleaning rod on the bottom of the rifle. So I always install a cleaning rod if I can, and I really do wish Century could include that in the box for the small price that they cost. You are still rocking the traditional slant brake, which does pretty good. It does not do really a lot as far as recoil, but it definitely does help slightly push the gun down and to the left, which is generally the pattern that the AK recoils in, and I probably won't be switching this anytime soon. Now, you guys may also notice on these V2 WASR-10s that the gas block is slightly different. It's kind of like this pseudo 45-degree gas block, and when asking around to a few of my buddies who know far more about AKs than I do, they inform me that this is probably just a production change in making the rifles a little bit less over-gassed. And I can tell you, at the range, it was actually relatively good in the gassing department. It was way less gas than normal WASR-10s are, and I can only really point to the gas block or the new design of the gas block for contributing to that. So I wouldn't be too freaked out by this. This is not a Century install. This is something that was installed at the factory in Romania, and I don't think you're going to have any issues with this new style of gas block. I think this is just simply a new design that they're trying out. I couldn't tell you guys, though, 100% why exactly they went with this design. If one of you know, definitely let me know down in the comments section. You are still rocking the side sight mounting option here, which is just standard comm block for the lockup. I am one of those people that generally go with the Ultimac rail, so that's what I'm going to be going with on this WASR. Another thing on the WASR is the safety. You will get kind of a wide variety of different feeling safeties. Some are not really going to be tactile. It just kind of slides with friction up or down. This one was definitely far more tactile than the other safety that was in the other washer we had in the shop. So that's exactly why I went with this option. It also had its selector spot there for fire a little bit more milled out than the other option had. So it was a very positive, good click into the fire position, but it was also not too difficult to move up or down. Now that is a relatively easy fix if it is a little bit too tight, but this one was perfect right out of the box. You're working with pretty much standard components on the internals that are going to perform well. There are machine marks everywhere, but again, I want to reiterate, that does not mean that you have a bad or unreliable rifle. In fact, generally speaking, out of all the rifles that Century imports, the WASR-10 line is probably going to be the most long-lasting and reliable rifle that they import currently. Anything over $1,000, and this rifle would just simply not be worth it, because for only a couple $100 more, you may still be able to find an arsenal. Now, with that being said, anywhere at $1,000 or below, I would still say the WASR-10 would probably be one of your best for track record AKs that are on the market currently. I was also running throughout this video a Vickers Blue Force Gear black multicam sling, just running it on the standard sling loop on the back of the stock, and then also using an HK style hook up here on the front sling loop on this rifle. I really do like these slings, and actually running it on this AK, I had no issues with it at all. It worked pretty well at the range. That is going to wrap up this first impressions video on the WASR-10 V2. Stay tuned, because I will have an upgrades video coming out very shortly on this rifle. Cannot wait to get this furniture off, because I have a bunch of cool stuff that I'm going to be throwing on it. So you guys are not going to want to miss that video. If you have any other questions about this rifle or anything else on the channel, feel free to throw them down below in the comment section, and you guys know I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, head up to the description and check out the links to the Firearm Freedom Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram account. I do daily posts over there that you guys are not going to want to miss. As always, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for more great videos to come soon.